Hey guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. What's new this week, Mike?
Golf trip is coming up. That's what's new. Weekend golf, buddy.
I know. I felt like, when's the last time I saw you? My birthday? Before that?
Was it? Was
I
that
can't remember.
after or
It's been a
before
while.
the wedding?
I mean, I see you every week, but only virtually. That was
Right.
after the wedding. We met up in Augustine. No, it was my birthday because my sister was leaving, or right before my birthday. Yeah, so it's been since
Yeah, it
April.
must have been it.
Jeez. Oh yeah, because we were gonna have a pizza party at your place, but then you guys got COVID, right?
That's right. COVID threw a wrench into that, and we never found a second date. That's right. We still need to. Got to get the wives on that.
No, we. Yes.
When everyone's healthy.
Yes.
Yeah, but this weekend, 4 rounds of golf? I'm down for that.
Me too. You ready?
Little Pennsylvania getaway.
Y'all limbered up.
We'll see if my back holds up, man. Fingers crossed, it has not gone this entire season yet, of golf. So, hoping I can make it through the fall, pain-free, back pull-free. So, we'll see. I'm getting up there, man, in age. We're getting up there.
Maybe we'll do a little. We haven't come up with the Patreon only breakouts for the Thriller Pod yet, but from the golf course live from Penn National this weekend.
Yeah, our patrons have something to look forward to because we are breaking out that bottle of Booker's. So our patrons know all about that, and our listeners.
Yeah,
so
baby.
More shenanigans from the golf course here on No Limits Thriller Pod. Well, you know who else must be in a lot of pain? My back pales in comparison to the pain Court Gentry must be feeling with what he goes through in the book we are covering today.
Yes, man. It's finally here. Both me and you have seen the movie. We went by ourselves individually. I snuck out of work for 2 hours in the middle of the day. I set up my experiments, and they had to run for 2 hours. I was like, I'm going to go now. And I went. You saw it the day it was released. We forget. We're going to, just a caveat, we're not really going to try to talk about the movie. The movie got a very limited theater release. It comes out Friday. We're recording this Wednesday before it comes out. So we want people a chance to watch it. We might release a pod, just the two of us. We've obviously also released our first reaction pods, so go check those out. We also have a lot of other content. I guess I'll just put that little plug here now. On our other feeds, we did Rising Tiger on the No Limits Brad Thor podcast. Great pod. I just listened to part 2 today. And we also, on this feed, we just had a marathon of content come out from the Terminal List, man. Oof. Mike, you were freaking killing it, man.
Man, the amount of hours, my fingers are feeling it. Moving this keyboard around, trying to edit those episodes. What do we do? 8? Well, if you include our first reactions, probably about 8 or 9 episodes covering the Terminal List. And then we did a 2-part series on the book as well, so... Yeah, it's been a busy...
And In the Blood.
Busy summer. And In the Blood, yep, the newest Jack Carr book in the James Reese series. And then on top of that, we're currently, it's in post-production, getting an interview with George Goodell, the audiobook narrator of the Mitch Rapp series together on our Season 1, the Mitch Rapp podcast. So, a lot of stuff happening this summer for No Limits, and I'm excited that the next week or so, we'll be getting to talk about The Gray Man. Because you didn't even mention it, we're hoping our full movie review, and again, like Chris said, spoiler-free in terms of the movie for this episode on the book. We will only be covering the book today. But next week, we'll be meeting up with our podcast friends, the Com Majors, everybody's favorite movie review podcast, and a fellow thriller fan in Brian Costello. And his crew will be joining us here on No Limits to do a full breakdown of the movie. And they are some huge movie buffs and have done plenty of action flicks on their podcast. Check them out, the Com Majors. They'll be here joining us to break down the Gray Man movie next week.
I'm just glad that all this content dropped while you were on summer break, because if not, I don't think we would have been able to do it.
It would not have happened. Actually, the week school ended, I was in Myrtle Beach, and I don't know if anyone heard this story, but I think I told it on one of the episodes covering the Terminalist. We get to the beach house. It's like the first week of summer break. Terminalist drops, ready to record with you, and the beach house has no TV. Well, it had a TV. It had a crappy, rundown, old TV. The picture was so dark you couldn't see anything. I said, no way. Literally, the day I drove in and got there to the beach, I went and picked up a 55-inch TV. So I needed it to watch the Terminalist. Yeah.
That's sick. You got a whole video set up now down at the beach house.
Yeah, dude. And then I think we recorded every single night. Not every episode was with you. You couldn't make them all, but I think every night I was there. I recorded with our guests, just banging out episodes. It was wild, man. So yeah, busy summer. Couldn't have done it unless I had these 2 months off.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was the original concept of this third feed, was hopefully being able to bring on some other voices, and we've been able to do that. So hopefully I can bring other voices, give you a break, Mike, in the future. So we'll see.
Yeah, man. Go ahead. Get some interviews. I mean, you've got connections, so make it happen.
All right, well, let's dive in to The Gray Man, Mark Greaney's first book. This came out in 2009, I believe.
Gray Man's been around, yeah.
What did you think about the book, Mike?
It's such a good book that, to share my thoughts, I wrote them down in the form of a limerick.
You tricked me there. I thought you weren't going to go for it.
You know me. There was an assassin named Court, but Lloyd has a dumb plan he must thwart. The Gray Man, he lives to save Fitzroy and grandkids. Racing across Europe, time is short.
Boom, baby. Speaking of racing across Europe, Mark Greaney puts, I want to say we should do a traveling heavy section on this pod, because he's getting up there to, destination hopping just like Brad does. We go, the movie does this too. Like they get it beat for beat, like that, no spoilers there. We go all across. We start out in Iraq, right? And then from there, we travel along pretty much with Court through Europe, ending up in France. Man, he gets around.
Yeah, what do we have? Hungary, Switzerland. Where does he?
Czech Republic.
Meet up with Laszlo. Yeah, in Prague. Yep, he's a lot of time in Prague. And the movie even adds more cities on top of that, including Asia.
Yeah,
it's wild. Yeah. Oh man.
Yes.
Although, while we're on it, with the international flair, not to start negative, there was a big, glaring error. And I hate to say this, but when we say all the time, if you get weapons wrong or caliber or tactics wrong, you lose a whole swath of the, military and gun aficionado population. I hate to say
not us, because I have no idea what they're talking about. But.
Yeah, same, right. You could write whatever you want about weapons and I'll believe it. But my specialty, geography, there was a major blunder here. Oh, it irked me.
What did he do?
When they're assembling all the teams, I think it's like Regal and Lloyd or somebody is connecting all the hit teams, and they're taking out this massive contract. They say one of the first teams was in Luanda, Botswana. And I just cringed. Luanda is not in Botswana. It's next door. It's in their neighboring country, Angola. Luanda, Angola.
Oh, man.
I was like, no. And then they listed it in a series of 4 or 5 other capital cities that were all correct. So just that one being so glaringly wrong, it was like, urgh. But I'm sure that's the 0.1% of people who either caught it or gave a shit. And unfortunately, I'm in that 0.1% of people who really give a shit.
You are in both those categories. Yeah, it completely went over my head, so it didn't catch it. Someone wasn't doing their job when they edited this book, but
it's just me being nitpicky. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to start off on the wrong foot, but that's that. Although, actually, I'm looking now, Angola and Botswana do not share a border because there's the small northeast Namibian corridor that separates the two. But, however, anyway, Luanda, Angola, Botswana, Gaborone. And, man, it just hurt. Hurt my soul.
Well, unlike you, most people seem to enjoy this book when you go on to Amazon and Goodreads.
Hey, I did enjoy it. Hey, we didn't do the scorecard yet. I am going to rate this book quite highly. Don't worry about that.
Okay. When you go to Amazon and Goodreads, it gets pretty high scores. It's got a 4.6 on Goodreads and a 4.7. Boom. Like it's one of the highest rated books I think we've done.
Yeah.
Lee Child says, hard, fast, and unflinching. Exactly what a thriller should be. I feel like I love Lee Child's like one words on top of these book jackets because they're always like, you literally paste this on like any thriller. It's like, Did he even? I know. I'm sure Lee Child actually read this.
Well, I saw that
it's just funny.
On the original cover. It was just a quote by Lee Child. I love the Gray Man, and I'm like, I love Mitch Rapp. I love Scott Harvath. It's just, I love the Gray Man. I'm glad, brother. I'm glad you do. Yeah, it caught me as just the quote just rang funny as something to have prominent on the cover.
Yeah. So, give you the summary. To those who lurk in the shadows, he's known as the Gray Man. He is a legend in the covert realm, moving silently from job to job, accomplishing the impossible, and then fading away. And he always hits his target. Always. But there are forces more lethal than Gentry in the world. Forces like money and power. And there are men who hold these as the only currency worth fighting for. And in their eyes, Gentry has just outlived his usefulness. But Court Gentry is going to prove that for him, there is no gray area between killing for a living and killing to stay alive. Ooh, you get like, that's more like just a little teaser.
Dude, I like that last line because it goes hand in hand with one of the few quotes I pulled from this book. Listeners of the pod know I like to pull out quotes, but I couldn't put this one down. Or I didn't want to hit pause because I did the audiobook. I was loving it so much, I didn't even take that much time to write notes. But this quote stood out to me, and it's during the plane scene, or at the very start of the airplane scene, which, damn, I can't wait to get to. But it's kind of like that synopsis. It says, quote, Court Gentry was a killer of men, and these were men, and that's all there was to it. Oh, I love that. Like, that just defines who Court is. Nothing's going to get in his way.
Yeah, so I guess, just diving right into the book, we start out with he's on this mission, right? Or he's just accomplished a mission.
An assassination, yeah.
An assassination. And so on the way out of the exfil, he just can't help himself but get involved in this down chopper, right? And we sort of go back and forth between the chopper scene and where he's at, and we think he's like just gonna leave the scene and get out. He's got to get the exfil. And then we cut to the scene where, friggin' heads start exploding, and obviously he's decided, well, fuck it, I'm going to take out these people on my way out.
Yep.
One, not only is that scene freaking awesome, I love, like, just jumping right into the action was pretty cool. But second, what I think it does really well is set up Court, and it's played throughout the book, is Court is a man of, like, principle, and even though he is, like, this, like, hardened killer, he has, like, I don't want to call it a weak spot, but he considers himself still American, even though he's been burned by, the American intelligence apparatus. They sort of churn him up and then spit him out. But he still, when he sees an American down, or he knows that there are bad guys that are currently in his line of sight, he's going to take that shot.
Yeah.
I think that this is later on is what Lloyd sort of uses to lure him in, right, with the girls and Fitzroy, even though he knows that Fitzroy sold him out. But I just like that because one of my you went negative. I'll give you my big negative. I didn't love. We don't get it now, but we get it like in a couple more chapters. Like sort of the cheesiness about like who the allure of who the Gray Man is. It was just like put on a little too heavy, a little too early. If I think back to, either the Norseman or the Iron Man, like those names weren't just dropped willy-nilly in the very beginning. It was something that had to be sort of earned, at least like a book. And I know like this book is called The Gray Man, and that's like what it's going to be. But the one line where I literally rolled my eyes was, I think it's when Lloyd's calls.
Yes.
What's his name? The blonde guy. the German.
Regal.
And he's like, real. Yeah. He's like, I need someone killed. And he's like, well, we can kill anyone unless it's the gray man, like,
yeah.
And of course it's like the gray man. I was just like, really? You didn't have to say that. Like, I don't know. For some reason, like that really like nitpicked me, but it saved a little bit definitely by the end, because we obviously know who he is and like he's sort of earned that name and that moniker.
Yeah.
But I felt like along with the very first couple chapters, all the exposition we got from like the conversations with Lloyd and Fitzroy, like those were my two big negatives. And I'm going to be positive the rest of the book. I'll get the negativity out of the way, just like you did. But yeah, I don't know. Did that rub you the wrong way too?
It's so interesting that you brought that up, because I know this was your first read, and I first read this book 3-4 years ago. I had the same reaction. I was jazzed up with the opening scene of like he's sniping these dudes.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah, the terrorists were celebrating, right? It was not just that they were capturing our guys and shot down the chopper. They were gloating about it. They were literally AKs in the air, jumping around, having a party that they were torturing American soldiers. And so Gray Man comes on so strong, as like you said, he's acting with integrity and principle. And then you kind of cut to this almost cheesy scene where cocky Lloyd is toying with Fitzroy. And it's kind of like this big dick competition. They're just kind of going back and forth of the who's who. I can kill somebody, or my company. Because we get a bunch of company name drops. Like the Laurent group is explained, and Fitzroy's group is explained. And that exposition with lines like, I'll kill anybody unless it's the gray man. Ha 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 ha. We're like, you're just trying to force a setup that's not there. So I had the same reaction. But my second go around and the reread, it was so cool because I knew Lloyd. I knew Sir Donald.
Right.
I knew what was going to come. And rereading that scene, I actually appreciated all the detail in their conversation because of how things play out. Down, 500 pages later, or no, like 300 pages later, it made me want that conversation. It almost felt like that conversation should have been the expanded universe, or a companion text.
Sure.
Where like, I just want to know who Sir Donald is, know who Lloyd is, and let's get back to the action. Because Court's, in the middle of the Iraq, Turkey, Syria border, or whatever, trying to get out of here. He's got this guy Bayless, right? He saved one of the downed soldiers. I thought that was a cool conversation. Bayless is like, who are you? Or what are you doing here? And Court says,
he's like,
just
don't look at my
through.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, don't look at my face.
Right,
just passing through. Like cool
like
lines
all that
like
stuff
that.
was really cool.
Yeah.
And that itself set him up. And like, obviously through the course of his action, we see he really is the gray man. And I think Gentry, Greaney does a good job of building this character and sort of filling out that name, that moniker. But just like, definitely on first reading that, it was just like, oh great, we're in for like this cheese fest. But then it quickly like sort of got away from that. But yeah, I don't know. The first couple of chapters had me like, what book are we reading? What is going to be this movie, Mike?
Sure.
But then the action, and then immediately right after that scene, we cut to the airplane, and then I was hooked, and I couldn't put it down. I just like that. Yeah. So
and
I don't know.
I'll be honest.
Not to be. I don't want to be negative about this, but like that's my big negative of the whole thing.
Well, I'm gonna kind of take that and spin it, because following this up with the airplane scene, which is just so over the top, and guys, we're not saying much, but a lot of the action scenes in the movie very much respected the material in the book, and that's super cool to see. So get ready. Yes. The airplane scene. I can't wait to talk about that. Well, that was in the
trailer, but yeah.
It was in the trailer too, so people know about that. There was a lot of the action scenes that this book, that put this book on the map, that they handled perfectly in the movie. So I'll leave it at that. But I almost felt like this was a double down of the cheesiness in a good way, because that's going to keep up throughout the book. Like you said, you rolled your eyes. I think I rolled my eyes 5 or 6 times because the gray man gets shot in the leg. He gets stabbed by the Korean assassin. He blows himself up at a Laszlo's, holding pool well thing. Just over and over, how many times he's getting hurt. And they do this in the movie too. So it's almost like doubling down on this roll your eyes, over the top action how the hell is this guy still going? And I mean, I think that makes this book more of escapism than other thrillers. And I kind of think that Mark Greaney is kind of being upfront about that, because I don't think of him in the category of Brad Thor, super detailed research, geopolitical nuance, or a Vince Flynn, which is getting inside the world of intelligence and analysts and knowing how these real players operate on the Hill in politics. Or your Jack Carr, right, who's going to take real experience, be super detailed about what operators are going through, the tactics they're using, the gear that they're carrying. I feel like Mark Greaney is just saying, I'm an entertainer, and I'm going to entertain you in the best way possible. And I'm okay that this story is not realistic at all. It's over the top. It becomes escapist in a sense of you get lost in a killer story in a different way than some of the other books where you're kind of thinking, well, is this real life? Or, oh, it would really happen this way. Or, oh, I could see that being true. I feel like the Gray Men don't care about that. It's just pure entertainment through and through, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that maybe what was doing me a disservice was like coming off reading, some of these others, and I was just in a different, expecting, either a Brad book or a Jack book, or like a Vince book. And it's different. And obviously we encourage that. We don't want everything to be the same. So I have to train myself to just be a little bit more open and not like so, expecting what my niche market is, right? But yeah, no, again, like I enjoyed this book, and my score is gonna, I gave it a good score. So when we get to that,
yeah, you know what you mentioned, we're both mentioning the differences here. It's also interesting. This is a book in the beginning of the series that is not talking about getting out. Like Mitch Rapp, we're so used to his theme is I'm done, I'm quitting, and Brad Thor is like, well, Scott Harvath is getting a little older, and he's already tried to settle down once with a wife. How is that turning out? Second time around now. And James Reese already been through so much trauma, kind of end of career or next phase in life. We're just getting a raw, young, at his peak gray man in the field. So it's definitely a different feel than all the books we've read most recently.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is obviously at the end, it sets it up for, he's going to have contracts to come. Like, right. I realize what sort of ride we're going to go on, and it's going to. I'm excited. I listened to the audiobook, which I think you did as well.
Fantastic.
I like the Jay Snyder.
Yes.
Who is I don't know if anyone listens to this audiobook, and also is young enough to have watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Or have kids that watch Yu-Gi-Oh! He plays the voice of the main character on that. And I've read an audiobook from him before, and as I'm listening to it, I'm like, why do I know this voice? I know this voice. And so I had to look it up. And when I found it was Yu-Gi-Oh! I was like, yes, that makes total sense. It's Yu-Gi-Oh!
So funny.
And then as soon as this one turned on again, I was like, Jay Snyder, nice. And it's a different, good. He's really good. Really good.
You know what I think he's better at than some of the other audiobooks we've heard? Having very distinct voices. Like,
yes.
Fitzroy.
Almost like a caricature, yeah.
Right. Think of Fitzroy versus Lloyd versus Court. They can easily get jumbled up, especially if, you're a new reader. And of course, this was the first Gray Man book. So he's so distinct in how the three voices come off. There's no way you can kind of mix them up. I thought he was brilliant with that.
And he wasn't afraid to do accents. Like where I feel like most of the time these, I'm trying to remember if like Armand or George with like Herman, the German, like do they really like throw on a big, German accent? Like, I think it's like very subtle. Yeah. Whereas here, he lays it on thick and he has no problem. And it's not super corny. It's, not a super accurate like accent, but it didn't take me out of the book. It actually probably put me a little bit more into it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there, especially for a book that has such an international flair. That was a good move.
All right, let's get into some of this action, man.
Right. So he gets out. He's on the plane. I mean, this is one of the most gripping action scenes you've ever read. No? It's got to be.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I mean, this whole plane battle, and he catches the guys right at the last second because they got the call to eliminate Court from, was it Lloyd at this point?
It was Fitzroy called him.
Right.
And told him to get on the plane, and then Fitzroy calls the people and says, take him out.
Take him out. And because that's exactly when Lloyd is pressuring him that, he's going to take his grandkids.
I'm going to take his grandkids.
Right.
Yep.
And, oh, man, just the way he's on this plane, it's going down. It's already half blown up and been shot out. And then he literally jumps to try to catch up with the guy who's got the chute. And he grabs onto him, deploys the chute, knocks this guy out, just out of control. It's like we've been saying, it's very Mission Impossible or James Bond kind of feel.
Oh, yeah.
And thankfully,
definitely
that translates on the big screen. Like you have the Russo brothers. That's all I'm going to say. That's a scene you want to hand off to the Russo brothers. Say, hey, read this thing, and then however you think it should be filmed, go do it, and we will give you tens of millions of dollars to do it. And Netflix came through.
Right. Like I love when they're describing, the plane has to do a quick, nosedive, and this causes like zero gravity. So like they're floating up top, right? And then then the plane has to like turn course and go back up, and so they slam down and they slide all the way to the end. And just like as I'm reading it, and maybe it was because I was listening to the audiobook, I felt like I was there, or like I felt like I was visually watching it the way Jay Snyder was reading it, and then. I read all that, before I ended up seeing, the movie. Yeah, and just like that, he's jumping out and he's wrestling the dude, and he like, I think, what does he take the dude out like while he's going, going down, and he still has like the willpower to like hold on. Crazy action, like just the idea of this scene is amazing. I'm so glad Greaney came up with this.
Yeah, what's interesting? I would have thought that scene kind of stands out in my mind like a few years later, having read this book the first time. It's like that has to be the big one, right? But so much else still has to happen, and action wise and plot wise,
and it happens early on,
and it happens so early. It's kind of wild. You close the book, and this also happened with the movie. I'll stop talking about it, but you almost forget that this scene happened because of all the events to come. And it's interesting. One of the characters who plays a really minor role next ends up sticking with me, or that I just continue to kind of think back to or have this picture or image of in my mind, and that's Laszlo, the document forger, and the guy he goes to get the passport from. I don't know why, but the way that scene is described as, this back alley, and where is that, Prague, or is that somewhere else at this point?
Budapest.
That was Budapest. That's right. And just the way that whole thing is described, where this guy gives off this kind of weird vibe. He's your old-timey spy, in Eastern Europe, really was at the height of his game in the Cold War. He's got all these connections, seems to know everybody and try to play them off against one another. You just feel something's up. Then all of a sudden, when he drops the gray man through that well, I was like, there's no way he's getting out of this. I mean, and again, the way he gets out, you'd have to talk to someone way smarter than me to figure out if you can cut this water pipe, make a grenade out of ammunition that you stuff into... I don't even know what he was doing. All I know is he made something that exploded, and he filled the well with water, so he was protected from the explosion. And boom, he gets out. Right as the CIA team is converging on him, and one of the hit squads is converging on him. So, again, I think this scene was utterly ridiculous. I could have paused and asked a million questions of, wait, what? How? Could that really happen? Would you be able to do that? But it didn't matter. It was just so damn entertaining. I was just loving every minute of it. I don't care that it's like 0 on the buy-in score. What did you think about Laszlo and this whole scene?
No, I agree. And I think like having already set up, the fact that one, he was able to get out of Iraq, either he got the exfil that he needed, again, we're slowly building up his bona fides, and the fact that he just jumped parachuteless out of an airplane, I pretty much, and he survives. I think that he can literally do anything now. So,
yes.
Yeah, no, this scene really stuck out in my mind because I did not see the trap door coming like that. Like the idea that he was going to, I just assumed that, the guy was going to pull a gun on him and he'd have to like kill him or something, or he was going to call the police, not that all of that was going to be there on top of him being trapped in this cistern. Yeah. And I guess we haven't even mentioned the fact that, while all this is going on, right, Fitzroy's been captured, his family's been captured, and Regal has been brought in, and they've decided to essentially put on the world's biggest bounty on this guy and brought in the top operatives from other countries' governments to get Court. And like you said, one of the hit teams shows up at the same time that the CIA, who also has a hit out for Court. Like this man has why is he still alive?
Right. Persona non grata, basically anywhere you turn.
What's crazy is that you not only follow up this scene, he gets out alive, but then we immediately go to 2 scenes in Switzerland that are like, sort of, we're just one-upping everything, all culminating with somehow him getting to the chateau and ultimately, rescuing the Fitzroys and saving the day. But the cabin scene, I don't know, for some reason the cabin scene really stuck out in my head. Going through the cold. Maybe it's because we've read a couple of the Brad books where he's been like in the cold recently.
Yeah.
Going to this, hole out where he has a weapons cache, he has it all set up. We think he's good to go. But Fitzroy turns on him again because he's one of 3 people and the other one's dead. So he's the only one. And this is what leads to, and I wanted to ask you about this. Do you think Gentry let Fitzroy off too easy in the end? I haven't read another book, so I don't know like what ultimately happens. But at the end, at least, Fitzroy is forgiven essentially and let go.
No. I think that's an interesting point. There's a couple of angles to it, but I do genuinely think Court would understand Fitzroy was in a position to save his family's life by sacrificing the Gray Man. And though he does later say the Gray Man is like family to him, I think Fitzroy, and by the way, he's really built up as a very wise character. So I think he has the wits to know these guys are not going to have luck getting Court anyway. And if they do, maybe there's a chance it saves my family. But I think the whole time he's really gambling that Court's going to win. So
sure,
I think he's confident about that. 2, I think Court understands the positions he's in. So no, I think they have such a good relationship that Court would have said you had to do what you had to do, and I'm fine with that. And third one that made me think was, if they go after Court at the cabin in Switzerland and no one on Earth is alive who knows about that spot, and it's so isolated, that proves that Fitzroy is a mole, or Fitzroy is supporting Lloyd. So I wonder if it was, because I think Fitzroy's smart enough, I wonder if it was a tip to say, hey, look, go to the cabin. If you get hit, the information's coming from me. Because to this point, Fitzroy didn't tell Court that his family was being held. Did he? Because he doesn't tell him that until he gets the cell phone.
I think it was after, and then he tells him that the family. No, they might have talked on the phone and said they were going to like kill. He might have said they were going to kill my daughter, but yeah, it's definitely after this he gets his cell phone, and then that's when he tells him that they killed his son. And
right.
I think, that sort of ups the ante for Court to like get these bastards.
Well, I wondered if it was a tip-off, just like, if you get hit at the cabin, it was me who gave the information, which means I'm compromised. So don't really trust anything else I kind of am forced to say to you under pressure.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, when I think about it like that, it makes more sense.
I think I buy that stuff a bit more than the Nigerian prince. Like, to take a step back, the whole reason the Laurent Group, the company that Lloyd is working for, and he's just a lowly lawyer, is because there was
messed up.
Yeah, there was a contract negotiation. He fucked up, and it was at risk of losing this contract for the Laurent Group. And it was an oil extraction contract, or they were going to build the infrastructure and the refineries for Nigerian oil. A multi-billion-dollar contract, right? So a $20 million hit to kill somebody in order to secure and lock up a multi-billion-dollar contract. It's a good play. What did you think about this? Like, Court just killed the prince's brother. The prince's brother wants Court's head. He literally will not take any other sort of answer except show me his head, and then you'll get the contract signed. Another one of these things that was a little too basic or just a little too outlandish for me. But again, that fits the narrative of everything else going on in this book, so it holds up.
Yeah, that's probably like, and maybe that's why we haven't really talked about it. Like the whole reasoning behind the plot for why Lloyd is doing this, why Regal, is brought in, why this company wants Gentry dead, is probably the weakest part of this book.
Yeah.
It just is while jumping out of a plane or surviving all these attacks also are unplausible. This like plot just seems even more unplausible than, someone surviving jumping out of a plane without a parachute, I don't know. It just, the plot just didn't vibe with me, but I also, by the time like I'm just reading this action, I didn't really care. In the beginning, again, I was hung up on that, and I was hung up on the, like I said, the cheesiness of like, ooh, the gray man. But then by the time, we're at the train station, or then when he goes to Maurice, or then when he ultimately, meets all these players in Paris and then in Normandy, I almost forgot about it until the very end, which I don't know. I can ask you the same question I just asked you for Fitzroy. Do you think he lets Mark Laurent off way easier than I would have thought?
Yeah, that ending, I guess we'll have to get there, but that question, let's hold on to that, because I do want to know in the end, were you satisfied about this twist of what's next for the Gray Man? And I'll be honest, full transparency, I have not read the second book. So
me neither.
I don't know how I'm going to feel the Gray Man working for the Laurent Group. He does make a good sell at the end, but I don't know. All
right. We have a couple more things before we get to there. So
the train station, while we're in Switzerland, is this where he gets handcuffed?
Yes. This is where he gets handcuffed, okay. And he's like survives a million bullets and grenades being shot at him on a train station.
So Switzerland. Okay, I'm just clarifying that.
Another scene that is accurately depicted in the movie.
Right.
So, yeah, and somehow he's able to survive this crazy assault on the train station. Again, showing his, he attempts to save some of the cops. He even tells them before like they get attacked, like,
right.
I'm not with these men. Watch out for them. Take them down. You're going to get killed.
Look at these two vans.
Right. And then he follows this up by heading to his old mentor or his old trainer in the CIA, Maurice. This scene was interesting. It's parts of it didn't vibe with me, but then parts of it sort of did. I felt like what he was going for was like sort of pulling these heartstrings of like this relationship that he had. But part of me, like as I was reading it, I didn't really feel this relationship that they actually had. I don't know, like because in the end, like he even sheds a tear for him, like when he hears the explosion, because Maurice ends up helping him out by purposely pulling the oven out and then knowing that they're going to shoot, and which causes this massive explosion in this apartment
with the gas leak.
Yeah. Did you buy like their past like and this build up, and like I guess it was supposed to give you some emotion of like heartbreak, right?
Yeah.
I didn't. It sort of took me out of the action a little too much, but
well, I think it does a good job in some regards, and yes, falls flat in others. So I will say it does do a good job in sprinkling some breadcrumbs. And again, I don't know if this happens, but if we do get to see or hear about Maurice later on in the series, I think that could be a really good thing that helps us get to this point. Yeah, whether it's
like a training at the farm scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if any of the books actually go back in time to his origin, getting recruited and trained, which we get hints at here. So I think Maurice and Sir Donald Fitzroy would just be like really cool characters to flesh out down the road. And so if that happens with Maurice, I think this scene has more weight to it. But then it does fall flat on some of the dialogue of, he is dying of cancer and he's still smoking that cigar, and they have a few, quips and jabs back and forth that are playful banter. And I didn't buy in, just like you, like if this is somebody I really care deeply about, which kind of like your Stan Hurley, right? He doesn't come in until really halfway through Vince's books. You know what? 7,
Right.
6, 7, 8. So you don't even know about Mitch's mentor and all that till American Assassin way down the road. And then he's one of the favorite
You don't know about the backstory of him. Right.
Yeah, you don't know that complete backstory. Or let's even take Gary Lawler and how he's an uncle to Scott Harvath. And right from Lions of Lucerne, I can really remember the cabin scene and the dialogue the two of them had told me that this relationship was really, really deep.
Real.
And Gary Lawler played a role in that story already. He was already there. We're meeting Maurice for the first time. In the middle of this book in one scene of dialogue. So I agree. I didn't buy in as much. But I really loved how he does set the grenade off, knowing the stove was pulled out and there was a gas leak, and that allows Court to get out. And basically his days were numbered, and that's the way he would have wanted to go. So I thought that was kind of cool.
No, that was cool. Maybe it's just trying to set up too many characters, during your first book. But you don't know, what you want to do in the future when he's writing this. So, yeah. All right. Well, we always have to thank our patrons, including our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or using Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, I'm just passing through.